There is a growing movement among conservative leaders to reverse America's declining birth rate. How does a $5,000 baby bonus sound to you? With Vice President J.D. Vance, Elon Musk, and even RFK Jr. behind the push, the goal is clear: make America fertile again. Let's bring in Roshini Rajkumar, political analyst, attorney, and host of the Crisis Files podcast. Good morning. How are you?
Kevin, just when I thought I had heard or read it all, you want to talk about this. I mean, it just, I'm kind of cracking up.
I could use $5,000. I don't know if I could have a baby to do it, but it sounds interesting. Is this what we want? Do we want the federal government in the business of encouraging Americans to have more children?
Well, I think the federal government has been in that business, but in a very different way. When you look at tax credits for kids and the different kinds of tax incentives that people get when they're married versus being single, or filing jointly versus separately, and different tax credits and all of that stuff. And many of those things, including support or help in various states for childcare, those kinds of things are helpful. So the federal government and state governments have been involved in that. But what we're talking about here, at least some of the things I've seen, are actually trying to separate people into different classes of people. And that's where we really touch on some discriminatory practices, possible discriminatory practices. So we can talk through what I mean by that. But at first blush, I don't think it's a super new concept, but I think how we go about it could get a little on the edge constitutionally.
It grabs your attention, the idea of a $5,000 baby bonus to new mothers. Do you think this is just political theater, just something to get people talking, or do you think it actually could work? Is $5,000 enough to get somebody to say, you know what, let's have a kid?
No way. I mean, you have kids. I have stepchildren.
They're
I mean, you could
hundred
easily
thousands
spend
of dollars.
Right, exactly. You could spend 5,000 in 1 or 2 months. You know what I mean? Depending on what's happening. So that is not enough to really make someone say, "Oh, that extra $5,000." When you really compare the economics of it, when I see something like that, a $5,000 per kid credit or bonus or check, what I get nervous about there is people who don't really understand the economics all of a sudden are saying, "Oh, let's go have a baby bonanza," whether they have the means to support the child, whether they themselves might be teenage moms and dads. I mean, those are the kinds of societal situations we don't want to put in. Now, I'm just going to mention a couple names that you've seen in some of the articles. So let's talk about J.D. Vance, for example. Now, you look at him, he's in a married situation. He's got 2 kids. I don't think they're going to have any more. And I'm not saying that that's a perfect family, because families are of all kinds. But then let's compare and contrast with Elon Musk. He's got 13 kids with, I've lost track of how many different women. That is not the example we want either. And Elon Musk is one of the spokespeople out there talking about it. Now, when he talks about the true decline in population and the problems that sets up for the United States and other countries like Korea, Japan, whatever country you're looking at in the numbers, those are real economic factors we need to look at. But I think we have to be very careful in what kind of policies, agenda, as well as just slogans, "Make America fertile again," I don't know is the right way to go.
Is there any concern about an incentive like a $5,000 baby bonus of people in poverty having children for the $5,000 and then not being able to support them?
Yeah, and that's partly what I'm getting at with that. Like, when you have anyone that can't in themselves on their own support themselves, married or single, right? If it's hard, if they're living paycheck to paycheck, or maybe they're even unemployed, having a baby is not what you want to introduce into that. $5,000 or whatever number it is, because that is not a really clear or conscientious way to be advocating for childbirth. So we get into a lot of issues here, because what one person defines as family is different from others. But certainly I don't think many of us want people in poverty, or people, even if you're not in poverty and have challenges with your monthly bills, bringing a child into that situation sets up a lot of other child welfare and family planning issues.
Donald Trump talked a lot about IVF access in the campaign, and the administration is preparing to release a report on IVF access and infertility. What do you anticipate coming from that, and is that why some of this talk is going on right now?
I'm sure that's why some of it is going on. And that is a completely different zone. The people that put themselves through IVF, I am not one, but I have many friends and a family member who did, and some to successful results, some not. And even the ones with successful results, Kevin, go through years and tens of thousands of dollars of resources and sometimes wasted time or embryos that didn't work. So usually if you're going down the IVF journey, I'd like to think you're in a thoughtful place. You've really thought through. It takes a lot, and a $5,000 child bonus is not going to make or break it for you. You have other reasons for wanting to have a child. So the IVF report that's coming out, I think it will be very good information. Always good to get information. And for the insurance companies that don't cover that kind of treatment, it could open up zones for couples or individuals to get that kind of treatment covered by insurance, which that is a good public policy result.
Do you think there's any value in an education push about the decline in population and the concerns that that could have for our country? Is education the kind of thing that would make somebody decide to have a child or not?
Absolutely. I've been a big pusher of education for decades. I believe that even the pro-choice and pro-life factions in this whole narrative, some of whom were against educating children at a young age about how babies are made because they thought everyone was going to run around and have sex. I think we've come full circle. This whole education plank of what we're hearing in this narrative is so important, both for getting babies out there and for preventing unwanted or unnecessary pregnancies. So education is always something that I will get behind. It just has to be a thoughtful approach and cannot be political. It's got to be science-based.
Do you have any concerns that this administration will make it harder to get contraceptives or won't make it any easier?
I really don't. I think at his core, Donald Trump is pro-choice and will be fine with you if you want to have sex and don't want to have a baby, get some birth control. I mean, that's just smart, and I would say even the scientists would agree with that.
All right, Roshini Rajkumar, political analyst, attorney, host of the Crisis Files podcast. Thanks for coming on. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Kevin.